I'm Adeline, 29 female. I live in a quiet apartment downtown, a place filled with books and orderly lines, which is fitting for my job as a data analyst. My life is a collection of spreadsheets and patterns, a logical world that has always been my refuge from the chaotic, emotional landscape of my family. For years, I believed that if I was quiet enough, helpful enough, and asked for nothing, I would eventually be seen. Instead, I learned that my silence simply made me easier to ignore, especially when it came to the one day a year that was supposed to be mine. Before this story unfolds, I'd love to connect with you. Please let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is in your corner of the world. It's amazing to see how far these stories can travel. Being the middle child in my family wasn't just a position, it was a profession. My older sister, Isabella, was the star. At 33, she was a successful interior designer with a portfolio featured in magazines and a personality that filled every room she entered. She was my parents' pride, the one they bragged about at dinner parties. Then there was Noah, the baby of the family, at 25. He was the artist, a freelance photographer with a soul too sensitive for deadlines or a 9-to-5 job. My parents coddled him, funding his equipment and travels, convinced he was the next Ansel Adams. And then there was me, Adeline, the reliable one, the quiet one, the one who was just there. My entire childhood was a masterclass in learning to be invisible. While Isabella was winning awards for school projects that my mother stayed up all night helping her with, and Noah was being praised for a finger painting that was evidence of his innate genius, I was the one quietly finishing my homework at the kitchen table without help. I was the one who remembered to take out the trash, feed the dog, and remind my dad about his dental appointments. My accomplishments were met with a distracted "that's nice, honey," while my siblings' smallest victories were cause for a celebratory dinner. I learned early on that my role was to be the stable, low-maintenance pillar that allowed the rest of the family to shine. It was a thankless job, but for a long time, I didn't know any different. I thought this was just how families worked. One or two are the showpieces, and another is the functional, unseen scaffolding that holds them up. The birthdays were the most glaring example of this dynamic. Isabella's birthdays were legendary. One year, my parents rented out an art gallery for her 30th. Another year, they threw a surprise party with a live band in their backyard. Noah's 21st was a weekend trip to a music festival, all expenses paid. His subsequent birthdays were marked with expensive gifts, a new camera lens, a trip to Iceland to photograph the northern lights. My birthdays, however, were an afterthought. More often than not, they were forgotten entirely until a day or two later, when my mom would call with a flustered apology. "Oh, Adeline, I'm so sorry. With everything going on with Noah's gallery submission and Isabella's big project, it completely slipped my mind. We'll do something soon, I promise." The promised celebration rarely happened. Usually, it materialized as a belated card with $20 tucked inside or a quick, awkward dinner at a chain restaurant a week later, where the conversation would inevitably drift back to Isabella's achievements or Noah's latest artistic crisis. I used to get my hopes up. Every year, as my birthday approached in late October, a small, foolish part of me would think, "This year will be different." I'd drop hints. "Wow, I can't believe I'm turning 26 next week," I'd say during our weekly family call. My mother would hum an acknowledgement before changing the subject. "Speaking of next week, your father and I are taking Noah to look at a new lighting kit. He says it's essential." The disappointment was a familiar ache, a dull throb I had learned to live with. I started a tradition of my own. On the evening of my birthday, I would buy myself a single cupcake, light a candle, and eat it alone in my apartment. It was a sad little ritual, but it was mine. It was the only acknowledgement I knew I could count on. My fiancé, Sam, was the first person who truly saw the dynamic for what it was. We met through a mutual friend and bonded over a shared love for old architecture and quiet evenings. Sam is an architect, a man who understands structure and the importance of a solid foundation. When he came into my life, he was appalled by how my family treated me. He couldn't understand how they could be so thoughtless. "It's not just thoughtless, Addie. he told me after witnessing my mom cut me off mid-sentence to take a call from Isabella. It's a complete disregard for you as a person. They see you as an appliance. Useful, reliable, but not something you have a conversation with. He was right, of course, his fam. Wiley was the complete opposite, warm, inclusive, and loud in the best way. They remembered my birthday after meeting me only once. His mother even sent me a separate text on the day. It was a small gesture that felt monumental. Sam's presence in my life made the invisibility more painful because I now had a benchmark for what it felt like to be seen. He celebrated my promotions at work, listened intently when I talked about a complex data set I was analyzing, and made my birthday a 3-day event. For my 28th birthday, he took me on a surprise weekend trip to a cozy cabin in the mountains. He had remembered a passing comment I'd made months earlier about wanting to see the stars away from the city lights. While we were there, sitting by a crackling fire, he held my hand and said, "I want to do this every year. I want to make sure you know, without a doubt, that this day is about you." I cried, not just from happiness, but from the sheer relief of being cherished. It was a feeling so foreign and so powerful that it cracked open something inside me. It was the beginning of the end of my acceptance. I was starting to realize that the scaffolding was tired of holding everyone else up. It was time to build something for myself. The year I turned 29 was supposed to be a turning point. Sam and I had gotten engaged a few months prior. He had proposed on the anniversary of our first date in a park filled with twinkling lights with a simple, elegant ring he had designed himself. It was perfect. When I told my family, the reaction was predictably lukewarm. My mother's first question was, "Oh, that's nice. Is Isabella going to be your maid of honor? She knows so much about planning events." My father grunted his approval before asking if Sam's family was well off. Noah just texted "congrats" with a thumbs-up emoji. There was no celebratory dinner, no flood of excited questions. It was just another piece of Adeline data being filed away. In contrast, Sam's family had thrown us a beautiful engagement party, welcoming me with open arms and genuine joy. The difference was staggering. Still, a part of me held onto a sliver of hope for my 29th birthday. It was my last birthday as a single woman. Surely, they would remember this one. Sam had planned a special dinner for us on the night of my birthday, but I had kept the day itself free, foolishly assuming my family might want to do something: a lunch, a coffee, even just a proper phone call. I'd mentioned it twice in the preceding weeks. "My birthday is on Saturday the 23rd this year, just so you know," I'd said cheerfully on our family call. "Right, the 23rd, got it," my mother had replied, her voice distant as I heard her directing Noah on how to frame a photo in the background. The morning of my 29th birthday arrived. I woke up to a stream of lovely texts from Sam's family and my friends. Sam had already left for work but had left a bouquet of my favorite flowers, peonies, on the kitchen table with a note that read, "Happy birthday to the love of my life. Can't wait to celebrate with you tonight." I smiled, my heart feeling full, but I kept checking my phone, waiting for a message from my own family. 10 a.m. passed. Nothing. Noon. Silence. By 2 p.m., the familiar knot of disappointment was tightening in my stomach. I busied myself with chores, trying to ignore the sinking feeling. Maybe they were planning a surprise. It was a ridiculous thought. They had never planned a surprise for me in my life, but hope is a stubborn thing. Around 3 p.m., my phone finally buzzed with a notification from our family group chat. My heart leaped. It was a message from my mother. I opened it, a small smile already forming on my face. But the message wasn't for me. It was a photo of Isabella, grinning from ear to ear, holding up a set of keys. The caption read, "Big news, our girl just closed on her first condo. Your father and I are so incredibly proud. Housewarming party details to follow." Let's all congratulate the new homeowner. My blood ran cold. Immediately, the chat flooded with messages. My dad sent a string of celebratory emojis. Noah wrote, "Yes, IZZY, so epic. Can't wait to do a photo shoot in the new place." Aunts, uncles, and cousins chimed in with their congratulations. The messages piled up, one after another, burying my birthday under an avalanche of praise for my sister. My special day hadn't just been forgotten, it had been completely and utterly erased. I stared at the screen, my vision blurring with tears. It wasn't just that they forgot. It was the cheerful, oblivious way they celebrated Isabella on the very day they had, once again, failed to acknowledge my existence. I was a ghost at my own party, a party no one had even bothered to throw. I put my phone down, a wave of nausea washing over me. The silence in my apartment felt deafening. The beautiful peonies on my table suddenly seemed to mock me. I scrolled up through the chat history. Last year on my birthday, my mother had posted about Noah winning a minor local photography contest. The year before that, she had shared an article about my dad's firm. It was a pattern. My birthday was just another day, a convenient placeholder for someone else's good news. I was a footnote in the story of my own family. The final blow came an hour later. My mother called, and for a wild second I thought she remembered. I answered, my voice small. "Hello? Adeline, hi honey, listen, I need a favor," she said, her voice rushed. "Your father and I are helping Isabella move some boxes into her new place and we're swamped. Could you possibly look up some moving companies for her? The good ones, not the cheap ones. Just text me a list when you have it. Thanks, sweetie, you're a lifesaver." And then she hung up. "No, how are you?" No pause. Just a task assigned to her ever-reliable daughter. She didn't just forget my birthday. She called me on my birthday to ask me to do work for the sister whose achievement had eclipsed it. Something inside me didn't just break, it shattered. It was a quiet, cold, and absolute devastation. The hope I had stubbornly nurtured for 29 years finally withered and died. I sank onto my sofa, the phone slipping from my hand. The tears that came weren't hot and angry, but cold and silent. They were tears of mourning, for the little girl who just wanted a birthday cake, for the teenager who wished for a simple, happy birthday text, for the woman who finally understood that she would never be enough. In that moment, the years of quiet acceptance curdled into a hard, clear resolve. I was done. I was done waiting for them to see me. I was done being the scaffolding. It was time to let them see what happens when the invisible foundation is removed. The structure they had built their comfortable world upon was about to collapse, and I would be the one to kick out the supports. That evening, I went to dinner with Sam as planned. I had washed my face, reapplied my makeup, and put on the new dress I had bought for the occasion. On the surface, I probably looked fine, but inside, I felt like a hollowed-out shell. Sam, however, knew me better than anyone. The moment he saw me, his smile faded, replaced by a look of concern. "Addie, what's wrong?" he asked, taking my hands in his. We sat down at our table in the corner of a cozy Italian restaurant, the one we loved, and I told him everything. I told him about the group chat, Isabella's new condo, the flood of congratulations, and the final, crushing phone call from my mother asking me to book movers. As I spoke, the numbness began to recede, replaced by a cold, hard anger. My voice, usually so calm and measured, trembled with a rage I hadn't realized I was capable of. She didn't just forget Sam. She used my birthday as a planning day for Isabella's move. It's like I'm not even a person to them. I'm just an assistant, a function. Sam listened patiently, his grip on my hand tightening. He didn't interrupt. He just let me pour out all the hurt and humiliation of the past 29 years. When I finished, my voice was hoarse and I felt utterly drained. He looked at me, his eyes full of a fierce, protective anger that was entirely on my behalf. "I am so sorry, Addie," he said softly. "You deserve so much better than that. They don't deserve you." His validation was like a balm on a raw wound. For my entire life, my feelings had been dismissed. I was too sensitive or reading too much into things. But Sam saw it. He saw the truth of it, and in his eyes, I saw my own worth reflected back at me. "We're not inviting them to the wedding," he said, his voice firm and clear. It wasn't a question. It was a statement. I blinked, surprised by the suddenness and certainty of his words. We had been casually discussing wedding plans, assuming a small, traditional ceremony with both our families. The thought of not inviting my own parents and siblings had never seriously crossed my mind. It felt like a line that couldn't be crossed, a taboo too great to even consider. "What do you mean?" I asked, my mind racing. "We can't just not invite them. They're my family." "Are they?" Sam countered, his gaze unwavering. "Addie, what have they ever done to earn the right to be at our wedding? A wedding is a celebration of love and support. It's for the people who have been there for you, who have lifted you up. When have they ever done that for you? Today, on your birthday, they proved they don't see you. Why would we give them front row seats to the most important day of your life? Why would we let them stand there and pretend they've been a part of this journey? His words hit me with the force of a physical blow because they were undeniably true. My family's presence at my wedding wouldn't be a celebration of their love for me. It would be a performance. They would smile for the cameras, my mother would tell everyone how proud she was, and Isabella would make a tea. Boast about how she always knew Sam was the one for me. It would all be a beautifully crafted lie, a continuation of the facade that we were a happy, normal family. And I would have to stand there and play my part, the grateful daughter and sister, while my stomach churned with the truth. I imagined my mother fussing over Isabella's dress, my father talking business with Sam's uncles, and Noah complaining that the wedding photographer wasn't artistic enough. I would be, once again, a supporting character at my own main event. They'll want to be involved in the planning, I murmured, thinking aloud. My mother will want to control everything. Isabella will have opinions on the venue, the flowers, the color scheme. It will become her wedding, not mine. Exactly, Sam said, nodding. It will be another event where you're expected to manage everyone else's feelings and expectations while completely ignoring your own. You'll be a project manager, not a bride. That was it. That was the moment of absolute clarity. The thought of planning a wedding with my family felt like preparing for a battle, not a celebration. It would be a year of 1,000 small cuts, my opinions being overridden, my choices being second-guessed, my special moments being co-opted. And for what? To maintain a relationship that had brought me nothing but quiet heartbreak. To uphold a tradition for people who couldn't even be bothered to remember the day I was born? No, I was done. Sam was right. They hadn't earned the right to be there. They had forfeited their invitation with every forgotten birthday, every dismissive comment, every blatant act of favoritism. A strange sense of calm washed over me. The anger was still there, but it was no longer a chaotic storm. It had solidified into something sharp and clear, a decision. You're right, I said, my voice steady. They're not coming, but I don't want to just not invite them. I don't want the drama, the phone calls, the guilt trips. I don't want to give them the chance to make this about them, to paint me as the villain who excluded her loving family. A new idea began to form in my mind, an idea that was audacious and terrifying, and in that moment felt absolutely perfect. It was a plan that would remove them from the equation entirely, not with a confrontation, but with a quiet, decisive action that they couldn't argue with. I don't want a wedding here, I said, looking at Sam, a slow smile spreading across my face for the first time that day. I want to go somewhere far away, just the two of us. I want to get married on our terms, with no audience, no performance, and no drama. Sam's eyes lit up. He saw where I was going, and he was already there with me. An elopement, he breathed, a wide grin breaking across his face. A destination wedding, just you and me. Just you and me, I confirmed, my heart feeling lighter than it had in years. And we won't tell them a single thing until it's already done. The days following my birthday were filled with a strange, liberating silence. My family, blissfully unaware of the seismic shift that had occurred within me, didn't notice my lack of communication. There were no, "Are you okay? We haven't heard from you" texts. My silence was normal to them. The family group chat continued to buzz with updates about Isabella's condo, photos of paint swatches, discussions about furniture, and plans for the housewarming party. I watched the notifications pile up with a detached sense of calm. It was like watching a television show about a family I used to know. The emotional tether that had bound me to their drama for so long had been severed. Sam and I dove into our new, secret project with the excitement of co-conspirators. The traditional wedding planning binder was replaced with travel websites and spreadsheets detailing flight costs and legal marriage requirements in foreign countries. The process was exhilarating. Every decision we made was ours and ours alone. We didn't have to consult my mother on the guest list or get Isabella's approval on the venue. There was no need to worry about catering to my father's taste in music or ensuring Noah had enough aesthetic backdrops for his Instagram. The entire project was an exercise in freedom. We decided on a small coastal town in Portugal. I had always dreamed of its tiled streets, dramatic cliffs, and the sound of the ocean. Sam, with his architect's eye, fell in love with the photos of the historic buildings and rugged landscapes. It was perfect. It was a place that had no connection to my family, no memories to be tainted. It would be entirely ours. We found a boutique hotel perched on a cliff overlooking the Atlantic, which offered an elopement package. It included a local officiant, a photographer, a bouquet of wildflowers, and a private dinner on a terrace as the sun went down. It was simple, intimate, and breathtakingly beautiful. The secrecy of it all was the most empowering part. I became a master of deflection. When my mother would call and inevitably ask, "So, have you and Sam set a date yet?" I would respond with a vague, non-committal answer. "Oh, we're still just enjoying being engaged. We're thinking sometime next year, but we're in no rush." It was technically true. We were planning for next year, just not in the way she imagined. She would accept this easily, her attention quickly shifting back to more important matters. "Well, don't leave it too long. And make sure you give Isabella plenty of notice. She'll need time to help you with the decor." I would just hum in agreement, a secret smile playing on my lips. The most difficult part was lying to my friends and Sam's family, who were genuinely excited for us. We told them that we had decided to have a very long engagement to save up for a house. Sam's parents were a little disappointed, hoping for a celebration sooner, but they were supportive as always. "Whenever you're ready, we'll be there," his mother had said warmly. The guilt I felt telling them this half-truth was quickly overshadowed by the relief of avoiding any accidental leaks to my own family. This plan required a completely sealed container. As the months passed, every detail fell into place. We booked the flights and the hotel under the guise of a much-needed vacation. I bought my wedding dress online, a simple, elegant sheath dress that didn't require fittings or a crowd of opinions. I found it one evening while browsing online and knew instantly it was the one. There was no dramatic reveal at a bridal salon, no tearful moment with my mother and sister. There was just me, in my quiet apartment, feeling a profound sense of peace. Sam bought a sharp linen suit. We chose our rings together at a small, independent jewelry store downtown. The entire experience felt authentic and deeply personal. It was about our commitment to each other, not about putting on a show for anyone else. One afternoon, about a month before our planned trip, my sister Isabella called me. "Hey, Addie," she said, her voice dripping with the casual authority she always used with me. "Mom said you're not in a rush to plan the wedding, which is probably for the best because I have an idea." I braced myself. "I was thinking," she continued, "that you should really consider the botanical gardens for your venue. I did a charity gala there once, and it was stunning. And for your dress, you should definitely go with a mermaid cut. It would be so much more flattering on you than what you probably have in mind." I listened, my grip tightening on the phone. In the past, this kind of conversation would have made me feel small and inadequate, but now it was just noise. It was the last gasp of a dynamic I was about to render obsolete. "Thanks for the suggestions, Izzy," I said, my voice neutral. "I'll keep them in mind." "You should," she said confidently. "I know what I'm talking about. Anyway, I've got to run. Talk later." She hung up, no doubt feeling satisfied that she had successfully managed her little sister's future wedding. I, on the other hand, hung up the phone and laughed. It was a genuine, heartfelt laugh. She was busy planning a fantasy wedding for me, while my real wedding was already booked, paid for, and just a few weeks away on the other side of the world. The irony was exquisite. The powerlessness I had felt for my entire life was gone, replaced by the quiet, thrilling confidence of someone who was finally in control of her own story. The flight to Portugal felt like a getaway in more ways than one. As the plane ascended, I felt like I was physically rising above years of accumulated hurt and obligation. Sitting next to Sam, holding his hand, I watched the city shrink below us until it was just a grid of distant lights. I was leaving behind the girl who waited by the phone, the girl who ate birthday cupcakes alone, the girl who made herself small to make others feel big. I was flying toward the woman I wanted to be, a woman who unapologetically put her own happiness first. The coastal town was even more beautiful than in the pictures. The air smelled of salt and blooming flowers. Our hotel room had a balcony that opened directly to the sea, and the sound of the waves became the soundtrack to our stay. For the first few days, we were just tourists. We explored the narrow, cobbled streets, ate fresh seafood at tiny cafes, and drank wine while watching the fishermen bring in their daily catch. There was no talk of family, no pressure, no lingering sense of expectation. It was just us, existing in the moment, completely and utterly present with each other. It was the most peaceful I had ever felt. The morning of our wedding day was calm and bright. The sky was a brilliant, cloudless blue. We had a leisurely breakfast on our balcony. There was no frantic rush, no bridesmaids in a panic, no family drama brewing in the background. It was serene. While I got ready in the bedroom, Sam sat on the balcony, reading a book. A local hairstylist and makeup artist, arranged by the hotel, came to my room. They were two warm, cheerful women who chattered in a mixture of Portuguese and broken English. As they worked, I looked at my reflection in the mirror. The woman looking back at me seemed different. There was a lightness in her eyes I hadn't seen before. I put on my dress, the simple sheath I had chosen. It felt perfect. Sam, in his linen suit, looked handsome and relaxed. When he saw me, his face broke into a wide, loving smile. "You look incredible, Addie," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Are you ready to do this?" "More than ready," I replied, my heart soaring. Our ceremony took place in the late afternoon on a secluded stone terrace overlooking the ocean. It was just the two of us, the officiant, a kind, elderly gentleman with a warm smile, and the photographer, a young woman who moved around us discreetly. The officiant spoke in Portuguese, which was translated by a hotel staff member. The words were beautiful, but it was the feeling behind them that mattered. As the sun began to dip towards the horizon, casting a golden glow over everything, Sam and I exchanged our vows. I had written mine in a small notebook a few weeks earlier. When the time came, I pulled it out, my hands trembling slightly. "Sam," I began, my voice clear and steady. For a long time, I felt like I was invisible. I thought that my role in life was to be quiet, to be supportive, and to never ask for anything for myself. And then I met you. You saw me from the very first day. You listened to me, you celebrated me, and you taught me that my voice matters. You are my foundation, my safe harbor, and my greatest adventure. Today, in this beautiful place, I don't feel invisible. I feel like the only person in the world. I promise to love you, to cherish you, and to always, always see you. When I looked up, Sam's eyes were filled with tears. He then read his vows to me, his voice full of a raw, honest love that wrapped around me like the warmest embrace. He spoke of my strength, my kindness, and my quiet resilience. He promised to be my partner, my champion, and to spend the rest of his life making sure I never felt overlooked again. In that moment, surrounded by the vastness of the ocean and the sky, the world of my family, the forgotten birthdays, the group chats, the constant striving for acknowledgement, felt a million miles away. It was insignificant. The only thing that mattered was the man standing in front of me and the new life we were choosing to build together, on our own terms. We exchanged rings, the simple gold bands cool on our skin. The officiant pronounced us husband and wife. We kissed, a long, joyful kiss as the photographer captured the moment. The setting sun painted the sky in shades of pink and orange. It was done. We were married. There had been no performance, no pretense, no drama. There had only been love. After the ceremony, we had our private dinner on the terrace. We ate delicious food, drank champagne, and talked for hours, dreaming about our future. We were giddy with happiness and the shared secret of what we had just done. Later that night, as we stood on our balcony, looking at the moonlit water, Sam wrapped his arms around me from behind. "Happy, Mrs. Archer?" he whispered. I leaned back against him, my heart overflowing. "Happier than I ever thought possible," I said. It was true. I had spent so much of my life trying to earn a place in a family that refused to make room for me. And here, thousands of miles away, I had finally understood. I didn't need to earn a place. I needed to create my own. And with Sam, I had. We spent another 4 blissful days in Portugal as a married couple, a secret honeymoon before we had to return to reality. The thought of facing my family, of finally revealing what we had done, cast a small shadow on our final day, but it was a shadow I was ready to face. This wasn't a confrontation I feared. It was a declaration of independence I had earned. The plan for the announcement was simple and direct. There would be no dramatic, in-person reveal. There would be no tearful phone calls. We were going to do it in a way that was completely in character with how they had always treated me. As an afterthought, a piece of information delivered impersonally. I had designed a wedding announcement card before we left. It was a beautiful, minimalist design featuring one of our favorite photos from the ceremony, the two of us laughing, with the stunning Portuguese coastline in the background. Below the photo, the text was simple and elegant. Adeline and Samuel were joyfully united in marriage on October 23rd in Azenhas do Mar, Portugal. We have begun our new life together with a private ceremony and will be celebrating our union with friends at a later date. The date, October 23rd, was crucial. It was my 29th birthday, the day they had forgotten, the day they had dedicated to celebrating Isabella's condo. I wanted them to see that date. I wanted them to connect the dots. I wanted them to understand, in no uncertain terms, what they had lost on the day they couldn't be bothered to remember. We had the cards printed at a local shop in Portugal. On our last morning, before heading to the airport, we sat at a cafe, addressed the envelopes, and put stamps on them. I wrote out the addresses for my parents, for Isabella, and for Noah. Dropping those envelopes into the bright red Portuguese mailbox felt like the final, definitive act of my rebellion. They were no longer in my hands. The message was on its way, traveling across an ocean, set to arrive and detonate the quiet, orderly world they had taken for granted. We flew home. The cards would take about a week to arrive, which gave us time to settle back in and prepare. Sam and I told our immediate friends and his family in person. We showed them the pictures, and while they were surprised, they were overwhelmingly happy for us. Sam's mother cried happy tears. "Oh, Adeline, it looks like it was perfect for you two," she said, hugging me tightly. "I'm just so happy you're my daughter-in-law." Her acceptance was so pure and loving. It stood in stark contrast to the reaction I was anticipating from my own family. A week later, on a Tuesday evening, it happened. I was at home, making dinner, when my phone started vibrating nonstop. I looked at the screen. 37 missed calls from my mother, a dozen from Isabella, even a few from my father, who rarely called anyone. Then the texts started pouring in. From my mother. "Adeline, call me right now. What is the meaning of this? You got married. Without telling us, how could you do this to your family, to me? I am your mother. I had a right to be at my daughter's wedding. And on your birthday, are you trying to hurt us?" From Isabella. "A wedding announcement, in the mail, is this some kind of sick joke? You eloped without your maid of honor, without your sister. That dress is all wrong for you, by the way. I would have told you that. You are the most selfish person I have ever known." From Noah. "Wow, just wow, got postcard. THX for the invite." I read the messages, one by one, a strange sense of calm settling over me. There was no panic, no regret. The anger, the entitlement, the sheer, unadulterated shock in their words, it was exactly what I had expected. They weren't hurt because they missed sharing in my happiness. They were furious because they had lost control. They were outraged that I had done something for myself without their input, their approval, or their performance. The wedding wasn't the issue. The issue was my sudden, unapproved autonomy. I let the phone buzz for another hour before I finally decided to respond. I didn't call any of them back. Instead, I opened our family group chat, the one that had been the scene of my final humiliation. I posted a single message, addressed to all of them. "Hello, everyone. As you now know, Sam and I were married on my birthday in Portugal. We chose to have a small, private ceremony because it was what we wanted. It was a beautiful, peaceful, and happy day. This is our news, and we are sharing it with you now. I will not be discussing it further or responding to angry messages. I hope you can respect our decision." I then used the mute function on the chat. I silenced their individual numbers as well. I would not be drawn into a fight. I would not let them drag me back into their drama. My statement was final. I had delivered the information, just as they had always delivered information to me, impersonally and without room for discussion. The tables had finally turned. For the first time in my life, I was the one setting the terms. I was the one who was unavailable for comment. The silence that followed on my end was the loudest thing I had ever said. The weeks after the announcement were a maelstrom of attempted communication from my family, all of which I steadfastly ignored. They tried everything. They left long, rambling voicemails that swung wildly between tearful guilt-tripping and furious accusations. They sent emails. They even tried to get to me through my cousins, sending messages asking them to talk some sense into Adeline. But I had built a wall, and for the first time, it was protecting me, not isolating me. Sam was my rock through it all. He screened calls, deleted messages, and constantly reminded me that I had done the right thing for us. "This is just noise, Addie," he would say when I'd find myself wavering. "It's the sound of a dysfunctional system breaking down. Don't let it pull you back in." About a month after the announcement, my mother and Isabella showed up at my apartment unannounced. I saw them through the peephole, standing in the hallway with grim, determined expressions. My heart hammered in my chest. This was the confrontation I had wanted to avoid, but as I stood there watching them, I realized I wasn't scared. I was just tired. I didn't open the door. I let them knock, their knocking growing more insistent until it finally tapered off. A few minutes later, I heard my phone buzz. A text from my mother. "We know you're in there, Adeline. The least you can do is face us." I deleted it without replying. My home was my sanctuary, and they were no longer welcome in it. The fallout eventually settled. When they realized their anger and demands were having no effect, their tactics changed. My mother started sending sad, manipulative texts about how her heart was broken. My father sent a single, curt email saying he was deeply disappointed in my lack of respect for the family. Isabella, in a final, dramatic flourish, unfriended me on all social media. Noah just disappeared back into his own world. It was a strange, painful process, like watching a building demolish itself in slow motion. But with every brick that fell, I felt a little more free. Sam and I held a small party for our friends and his family a few months later. It was a casual, joyful affair in the backyard of his parents' house. We set up string lights, had a fantastic caterer, and danced for hours. There was so much love and laughter in that yard, it felt like a protective bubble. People gave toasts that were heartfelt and funny. Sam's dad told a story about how he knew I was the one for Sam when he saw how Sam looked at me. My best friend told everyone how she had never seen me happier or more confident. I felt so surrounded by genuine support that the absence of my own family was barely a pinprick. They had chosen not to be a part of this joy, and their absence was their loss, not mine. Life moved on. Without the constant, low-level stress of trying to manage my family's expectations, a huge amount of mental and emotional space opened up for me. I excelled at work, taking on a leadership role in a major project. Sam and I bought a small house with a garden, and we spent our weekends painting walls and picking out furniture, decisions that were blissfully ours alone. I was building a life that was stable, peaceful, and filled with love. A life that was the complete opposite of the one I had grown up in. I do not have a relationship with my parents or Isabella anymore. The silence between us has stretched from months into over a year. Sometimes, a pang of sadness hits me, a grief for the family I wish I had. But it's quickly replaced by a profound sense of peace. I know that I made the right choice. My brother, Noah, is the only one who has reached out. About 6 months ago, he sent me a hesitant email. He said he was sorry for how things had gone down and that, after thinking about it, he kind of got why I did it. He admitted that he and Isabella had always been the favorites and that it must have been hard for me. It wasn't a perfect apology, but it was a start. We've exchanged a few tentative emails since then. Maybe one day, we'll be able to build something new, just the two of us. My marriage to Sam is the foundation of my new life. He is my partner in every sense of the word. He continues to see me, to celebrate me, and to remind me of my worth every single day. My last birthday, my 30th, was the best one I've ever had. We spent the weekend at a beach house with a group of our closest friends. There was cake, laughter, and a bonfire under the stars. No one forgot. No one overshadowed the day with their own news. I was the center of it all, not in a demanding or selfish way, but in a warm, loving way that felt natural and right. I sent my family a card from a resort, but the real message wasn't on the paper. The message was in the action. It was a declaration that I was no longer their ghost, no longer the quiet, reliable appliance. I am a person who deserves to be seen, to be celebrated, and to be loved for who I am. I had to travel across an ocean to find that person, but I would do it all again in a heartbeat. My new beginning wasn't just about getting married. It was about finally, truly, coming home to myself.